Oleg Orlov, co-chairman of the Memorial Human Rights Center, will be tried for repeatedly discrediting the Russian army. He faces up to 3 years in prison. The reason was a post on social networks. Orlov wrote that the war against Ukraine was unleashed by Putin's regime and called it the hardest blow to the future of Russia. In March, after the searches at the memorial's employees, Orlov was informed of the suspicion, and a little more than a month later, he was handed an indictment.
I don't understand this accusation at all, for a number of reasons. Well, firstly, this Article 280.3 itself is formulated in such a way that no normal person can understand what is about. What acts fall under the so-called "what distinguished discredit" differs from criticism. Well, it's completely impossible to understand.
A court in Moscow fined confectioner Anastasia Chernysova for 35,000 rubles under the same article on discrediting. The 22-year-old girl has been baking and selling sweets with anti-war and protest slogans for a year now. According to the Russian court, this way she discredits the army. Tatiana Kamchatova was detained in Yekaterinburg when she stood on Lenin Square with a poster "Peace to the world, no to war." And in Kaliningrad, a pensioner was taken to the police station for a "no to war" badge.
It turns out, a terrorist. Yes, absolutely terrible. Is it possible to travel with Pyotr Ivanovich? No.
Both in the case of Orlov and in the case of Chernysova, everything began with denunciations. Since February 2022, this long-standing Stalinist tradition has flourished in Russia. Passengers in the metro denounce on other travelers, restaurant visitors denounce on people at the next table, teachers denounce on students, students denounce on professors, neighbors and colleagues denounce on each other.
The increase in the number of denunciations is one of the indicators that the state is already balancing somewhere between authoritarianism and totalitarianism. This is the awakening of the dormant totalitarian instincts of the population, which, it would seem, have disappeared long ago. But it turns out not. All this was stored somewhere in the remote corners of the soul, and as soon as the atmosphere turned into an immoral one, people began to correspond to the situation, that is, to behave as it is encouraged by the state. Andrei Kolesnikov, analyst, in an interview with Radio Liberty.
Return to Stalinist practice and introduce military fields tribunals, and also to revive the concept of enemy of the people. This proposal was made by the deputy of the Russian State Duma from the United Russia Party, Andrei Gurulev.
Unfortunately, across the Russian Federation, we are once again witnessing an all-out attempt to criminalize those voices that deviate from the regime's propaganda machine, what Orwell sardonically called the Ministry of Truth. Courtney Austrian, deputy head of the U.S. mission to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, from a speech at a meeting of the Permanent Council in Vienna.
This week in different regions of the Federation, according to OVD Info, 29 court hearings on political criminal cases will be held. In total, since February 24th, 2022, 19,673 people have been detained for anti-war position in Russia. Reported by Roman Smoler, Natalia Husak, UATV News.